Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we group 9 are going to present about transport mechanism in plants and plant hormones. Our group consists of 5 members, which is Aline, Aisyah, Adam, Tasha and Dini. First is the xylem and phloem structure. Xylem moves water and minerals from roots to leaves. The characteristics of xylem is that it is strong-walled, consists of non-living cells, and provide internal support for plants. Xylem consists of two conducting cells, which is tracheids and vessel elements. Tracheids are tapered at both ends and they overlap with adjacent tracheids. Tracheids also have pits, which allows water to pass from one tracheid to another. However, the vessel elements are long, tubular, and have perforation plates at the end. Perforation plates allows the passage of water and dissolved substances. Vessel elements form a hollow pipeline from roots to leaves. Next is the phloem. Phloem transports organic nutrients to all parts of plants. However, roots cannot carry photosynthesis because they do not have chlorophyll and are buried underground where there is no sunlight. Phloem has two types of cells, which is sieve tube members and companion cells. Sieve tube members consist of conducting cells, have numerous pores where strands of cytoplasm extends, and they lack nuclei. However, companion cells have nuclei and also provide proteins to sieve tube members. The next topic is the role of water potential. Water potential is also known as the potential energy of water. In terms of water potential, water flows passively from area of high water potential to area of low water potential. For example, from the diagram on the right, we can see that roots has high water potential as the water moves into the roots by osmosis. At the leaves, water potential is low because water escapes through the stomata.
You might be wondering how water is transported from the root to the leaf of a plant, especially in tall trees, which can exceed almost 90 meters in height. Well, it is indeed a daunting task. We all know in plants, xylem moves water and solute from the root to the leaf of a plant. Water transport occurs through transpiration, which is an evaporation process of water to atmosphere through stomata on leaves. What happened in transpiration? Let's start from the bottom of a plant in the soil. Roots have a lot of root hair, giving a large surface area for water absorption. Water then passes through the root by osmosis. We need to know that there is a higher water potential in the soil and lower water potential in the plant. This water potential difference causes the water to move into the root by osmosis, creating a root pressure which is helpful for the outward movement of water. Water then passes into the plant cell cytoplasm and to the xylem vessels. Water moves through the xylem vessels from the roots to the stem and to the leaf of the plant. This cohesion tension model of xylem transport describes how water travels upward in xylem. On the other note, transpiration occurs on the leaf causes water molecules to completely resist gravity and travel upward. The ability of water to stay linked in a chain is called cohesion, and the ability of the water to stick inside the xylem vessel is called adhesion. Cohesion and adhesion of water molecules exert tension, which is a constant tugging or pulling of water molecules from the top due to evaporation. Hence, water molecules are pulled upward first within the leaf, then from the stem, and finally from the roots during transpiration. In this transpiration process, as well as the plant needing water for photosynthesis, water also keeps the plant turgid, which supports the plants. There are plenty factors that can affect the transpiration rate of a plant, be it environment factors and physical factors. In environment factors, the temperature, humidity, wind, and light density play a big role in the transpiration rate of a plant. Whereas in physical factors, we might consider a plant to and not to have a wax cuticle, how much stomata they have, and the size of the leaf surface area, whether it is folded or flat. All of these factors affect the transpiration rate of a plant. But one thing we need to know is when transpiration rate increases, the water absorption by the root also increases.
Now we are going to discuss about the opening and closing of stomata. What is a stomata? Stomata is a tiny opening that is present at the epidermis of leaves. It consists of a cell wall, chloroplast, nucleus, vacuole, and also a stoma. And from the image, you can see that on the left is that the stomata is opening and on the right is the stomata closing. How does this process occur? Let's see. When a plant is under stress, naturally its stomata will close. And when the stomata is closed, the carbon dioxide cannot enter the leaves. The photosynthesis that occur will be inefficient. And as we know, photosynthesis requires plenty of water. Therefore, the stomata will then open. As water enters, the turgor pressure increases. Stomata still remains open. After some time, it will lose enough water and eventually closes. So as you can observe, there's 5 steps that is involved in the opening and closing of the stomata. It starts with the stomata closing, and then it opens and finally closes again. And here are some of the few things that you should know. The active transport of potassium ion causes water to follow through osmosis, which leads to the opening of the stomata. Next, the blue light from sunlight can regulate the opening and closing of stomata. Lastly, when plant is kept in the dark, stomata open and closes for every 24 hours.
Mosses are short ancient plants with no vascular tissue. Water, minerals, and the products of photosynthesis all move passively from one cell to the next. As plants evolve and move onto the land, there were many challenges for survival. There is vascular tissue in the plant in order to survive. The vascular tissue of plants has 2 transport tissue called xylem and phloem. Xylem transport water and minerals, while phloem transport a variety of dissolved substances, including sugar and amino acid. Water in xylem always moves up in the direction from the root to the leaves. At leaf, water evaporates. This evaporation, called transpiration, creates tension at the top of water column in the xylem and cause water to be drawn upward from the roots. Unlike in the xylem, the solution in the phloem can flow up or down the plant. The direction depends on the concentration of solute in the phloem. A model called the pressure flow model describes how sucrose concentration determines in the direction of the flow. 2 types of cell, source cell and sink cells, play roles in the transport of solution in the phloem. Source cell produce sucrose and load it into the phloem. Source cells are typical photosynthetic leaf cells, but they can also be other cells type. For example, root cells with large store of carbohydrates can act as source cell by releasing this carbohydrate into the phloem. Sink cells are any cells that unload sucrose from the phloem. Sink cells are found throughout the plant but are abundant in roots or developing fruits and shoot tips. Sink cells typically cannot meet their own needs for carbohydrates and must import them from the phloem. The fluid begins to flow when source cells pump sucrose into the phloem. As the concentration of the sucrose in the phloem increases, water enters the sieve tubes by osmosis. The water enters from any surrounding tissues such as xylem that have lower solute concentration on the phloem. As the water flows into the sieve tubes, the turgor pressure within the sieve tubes increases. This pressure forces the sugar solution through the sieve tubes to region of the lower pressure. The solution passes by sink cells and these take up sucrose. As the sucrose concentration decreases, water flow by osmosis out of the phloem to region of the higher solute concentration. The loss of water in turn decreases the pressure in the phloem and pulls fluid from the other higher pressure regions of the phloem.
Plant hormones. Plant hormones is chemical signals that coordinate cell
responses. Signal transduction mechanism. First is receptor. Receptors in plasma membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus receive signal and becomes activated. A receptor that responds to light has pigment component. Some examples are phytochrome receptor that is sensitive to red light and phototropin receptor that is sensitive to blue light. Second is transduction pathway, a series of relay proteins that pass a signal until it reaches the machinery of the cell. In certain cases, a bound receptor interacts with the transduction pathway right away, whereas in others, a second messenger triggers the reaction. Third is the cellular response, the result of the transduction pathway. The response is either the transcription of particular genes or end product of an activated metabolic pathway. It brings out the overall visible change, such as closing of stomata or a stem that turns toward the light.
Type of plant hormones. First is abscisic acid, initiates and maintains seeds and bud dormancy. Second is gibberellins, causes stem elongation. Third is ethylene, causes abscission and ripening of fruits. Fourth is cytokinin, promotes cell divisions and prevents senescence. Lastly, auxins, promote growth of roots and leaves and prevent loss of leaves.
Auxins. The name is derived from Greek word auximus, which means promoting growth. It produces in shoot apical meristems, young leaves, flowers, fruits, and at lower level root apical meristem. It has many variations, but the most common naturally occurring form is indole acetic acid (IAA). How auxin causes stems to bend. When the stem is exposed to unidirectional light, the auxin moves to shady side. It enters the nuclei of the shady cells and attaches to a receptor. The hydrogen ions are pumped into the cell wall, creating acidic environment in the cell. The acid triggers enzymes to dismantle the cellulose fibers in the cell wall, which weaken the cell wall. The weak and loose cell wall will decrease the turgor pressure. The water potential inside the cell is lesser than outside of the cell, so water flows into the cell from other parts of the plant in an attempt to restore turgor pressure once again. The pressure of water begins to stretch the wall, so the plant cells respond by rebuilding a longer wall. Without the rebuilding, the cells will burst because of the high pressure.
Auxin affect growth and development. First, it causes phototropism to maximize exposure of plant to the sun. Second, it's responsible for gravitropism. Third, it's responsible for apical dominance. Fourth, it causes the growth of roots and fruits. And the last one, it prevents loss of leaf and fruits.
Lastly is the conclusion. For transport mechanisms in plants, plants have two vascular tissues, which is xylem and phloem. Xylem moves water and minerals from roots to leaves, while phloem transports organic nutrients to all parts of the plants. Next, according to water potential, water molecules diffuse freely across plasma membranes from high concentration area to low concentration area. In water transportation, water and minerals travel upwards in the xylem by cohesion tension, which is tension among water molecules, and adhesive tension, which is tension with the xylem walls. Next is the transpiration, which is the loss of water to the atmosphere, mainly through evaporation at leaf stomata. Next, stomata closes when plants undergo stress, and stomata opens when guard cells take up water. For the second last is the pressure flow model, where it proposes that a positive pressure drives phloem contents in sieve tubes, which creates a sink. And lastly, a sink can be at the roots or at any other part of the plant that requires organic nutrients. For the conclusion in plant hormones are chemical signals that coordinate cell responses. Signal transduction mechanism is important for the plants to react to stimuli. There are many types of hormones in plants, such as auxins, gibberellins, ethylene, abscisic acid, and cytokinin. The bending of the stem is caused by auxins. Auxins cause gravitropism and phototropism, and also responsible for apical dominance, growth of fruits and stems, and prevent loss of fruits and leaves.